One of the areas that the conventional side of optometry and ophthalmology stifles a little bit or glazes over a little bit is the underlying root causes, the more mental, psychological, emotional connections of why people's vision gets out of balance in the first place, why they experience blur or even more serious eye diseases. So that's one of the things that I wanted to sort of pick your brain about a little bit today is the Bates method does have things built into it to help with that type of stuff. Bates was really into the whole mental strain concept and the whole mental state, but he didn't go that deep into like the whole emotional side of it and ways to actually work through some of those root causes and process some of those fears or angers or traumas and stuff. So since Dr. Bates's time, there's been these other modalities that have emerged that help fill in some of those gaps. And I know one of them that I learned about partly through you, and then also just through my own research online, is the emotional freedom technique, or EFT, which involves different kinds of tapping and statements and things. So why don't we, since we know a little bit more about you and your vision and your experience with this stuff, do you mind kind of introducing what that is a little bit more to us, and then we can kind of dive into that topic a little bit together?
Sure. Yeah, I've explored a lot of different techniques over the years. I got certified a long time ago. I didn't want to tell you how old I am, but I'm 95.
But
yeah. But I got certified in massage. I got way into subtle martial art and meditation. I taught those things a lot, and I went a lot of different, healing modalities. And I know you learned the rapid healing technique, which is one of those so-called energy psychology healing techniques. And some of them have a lot of, are you into Venn diagrams? Or is that a relic from the, where things overlap a little bit and they have the common area. But EFT for me, it's been EFT, I responded at first kind of like I did to that first Bates book. I was in a restaurant here in Fort Collins, Colorado, and there is a fairly large table of alternative people. And, I'm a little bit of a private person. We were right in the middle of a restaurant, and this woman had been to like a 2-hour EFT class, and she starts trying to get us all to tap, on our heads and our, and I just felt like an idiot. So that was my introduction to
doing it in a restaurant in front of everybody.
To EFT. And I already thought of her as a little bit out there and a little bit flaky. And then I kept hearing about it again and again.
Yeah.
And then one time I was having a workshop, a weekend workshop, and there was a woman there who had done a lot in EFT. She used it a lot. And finally I looked at her and I thought, okay, this is voice of God here. So I looked at her and said, wow, if people are into it, would you be into leading us through some EFT just so we can experience it? And so she found somebody that had a headache or something like that. And we all tapped together, which, by the way, the synergy, when you have the luxury of tapping with a group, I think the synergy is fantastic.
Powerful.
But it can be done by oneself, or I think it's really powerful to do it with another person, because that person then doesn't live in your box of like familiar territory.
Yeah.
But anyway, she did some EFT with all of us, and we could all see, wow, this worked. And from that day on, I was in love. And I went to a training with Gary Craig, who, there's the folklore that he purchased kind of a brain dump from Roger Callahan, who had another more complex technique. And he thought, well, you know, he was real into NLP and Course in Miracles, and he was an engineer, Gary Craig. So my hero. So he was able to take all this and simplify it a lot, and he attracted quite a nice group of people who wanted to explore it with him.
Yeah.
And later, a lot of them became so-called EFT masters. And anyway, his motto was try it on anything. And he was interested in using on an eyesight. A woman paradoxically named Carol Look, which is a good eyesight word,
Yeah.
actually did a so-called EFT Eyesight Experiment. And so it's, you know, for somebody who's just listening, audio, you know, I would just say, just hold up one of your hands and just tap with the other hand with maybe 3 fingers, tap kind of on the meat of your hand. We call that the karate chop point. And if you get the wrong place, that's fine. Just pretend you're in the right place and then go later and look at an EFT video on YouTube. But
so it's the karate chop point because it's right where you would chop them.
Right, it's right where you would chop somebody in the neck. So if you follow your little finger and go down,
the outside
into that meat of your hand, and then you're tapping on that, and you can tap either side, both sides, however you want. And so then there's here. Should I go ahead and do a little bit of a example?
Sure.
Okay. So it's like, and it seems so innocent, you know, but it's very powerful. So it's like if I say something and you were a client, say, I'd say, and we've been talking, you know, so I have a little sense of things, and so you know, even though I'm really scared about my eyesight, and you might say that when we're staging it, you're not scared about your eyesight, but
so I'd say I'm scared about my eyesight.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with this glaucoma or cataract or whatever, or detached retina, and so. You know, so you might just say, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. And we're both tapping.
Yeah, I'm scared about my eyesight. I don't know what's going to happen with this detached retina.
Yeah, of course, you don't even want to say those words, but that's the thing. And then there's what they call a basic recipe, which is just 3 times going through this, and then saying something like, and I love and appreciate myself fully and completely. Still tapping.
And I love and appreciate myself.
Yeah, or accept myself.
Fully and
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah, just as I am.
Just as I am.
Yeah. And so it's going through doing 3 of these things. And it could even be more simple. It could be more like, wow, even though I'm afraid to see, I love and appreciate myself fully and completely just as I am. You know, it could be really simple like that. That's the experiment that Carol Look did. She started with 400 people who said they would do it every day. Of course, that went down to 100 people. And they got significant results of improvement. But then you tap on around. So say we've done 3 of those on the karate chop point, and now you just tap your fingers on your top of your head, and then just these are called reminder phrases. So like, I'm really scared. So you might say that if you're my client.
Yeah, I'm really scared.
Yeah, I think I'm scared to see.
I think I might be scared to see.
Yeah. And especially I've noticed if it's somebody like with a cataract, they really are scared to see what's next in their life.
Yeah.
So I'm scared
of the future.
Yeah. And that's right out of the Louise Hay playbook is, yeah. So I'm afraid of what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm afraid of what's going to happen.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm afraid I might lose my eyesight.
I'm afraid I might lose my eyesight.
And I'm afraid you know, and I've been talking to this person, there might be something else specific that they've
Yeah.
mentioned. And, you know, I'm afraid I can't drive at night anymore. You know, I'm, I'm afraid of what I'm going to do without, you know, now that I'm retired from my job and things like that. And so we're tapping around, and the way I see it, I mean, the official EFT playbook or storyline is that we're tapping on acupuncture meridians.
Hmm.
So the tapping points, which, you know, maybe you'll wind up including a little chart or something or a link
Yeah, I can
when
definitely
you
add a little diagram to the.
when you post the blog.
Yeah.
And you know, so people can see, you know, you're tapping above your eye, kind of towards your nose, above your eyebrow, and then you're tapping on your temple onto that bone a little bit, and then you're tapping on your cheekbone above below your eye, and then tapping below your nose, your chin, collarbone, and all the while, you know, doing this chatter about uh, you know, these so-called reminder phrases about, you know, what's going on under the armpit, like 3 inches down,
Hmm.
and then back to the head. And this is incredibly simplified from what even Gary Craig's simplified version was.
Yeah.
I mean, it had this whole middle part that they called the nine gamut thing, and you had to roll your eyes a certain way, and then you had to hum,
Hmm.
and what was cool was they kept simplifying it and realized it worked just as well when it was simple, when it
Yeah.
was simplified. So,
Maybe even better sometimes.
I I really think so. I just a couple other things about EFT. I like to think of it. It's like if you were a stream going down a mountain.
Hmm.
You know, if you're water going down a mountain, is just go where it goes.
Hmm.
Because what most people try to do with EFT is they try and bend it and warp it and twist it and master it and produce a result. But I've seen miracles from just, you know, not trying to steer it, but letting something come out. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, EFT, like, and people are going to find this out if they go looking and exploring. EFT, like so many other things, I saw this in Aikido. It's like, you know, the founder of Aikido, uh, Uye Shiba Sensei, you know, he died in, I think, 1968. Well, he was in his 90s, and all along the way, he trained different batches of people, and he was evolving the whole time. He was evolving,
Right.
but each person who became a master of the art supposedly was taking a photograph of where they called him O Sensei, where O Sensei was at that time, and then so what happened is they all started fighting, and and it happens in everything. You know, it happens in
Yeah.
religions, it happens in government. You know, it's just the law of entropy, I guess, in humans. But it's happened a little bit with EFT too, and you know, I Gary Craig used a minor heart attack as kind of an escape to get out of what he'd created, because it at first he was like, oh, take it and do whatever you want, but then he realized a lot of people were twisting it so much it was unrecognizable, and he thought, what have I done?
Mm.
So a lot of people now call it meridian tapping or just
Okay.
tapping.
Yeah.
And like Nick Ortner has these, you know, very popular world tapping summits, and he'll have a lot of different people, including Carol Look, who we mentioned
Yeah.
earlier, that had the eyesight experiment, so called. So yeah, I just wanted to say there's so many good people involved, and Gary Craig has come back, and you know, at first I think he was a little rough around the edges, but I've been subscribing to his newsletter, and I I think he's getting back in his own groove.
Nice.
He's going to the next level of what EFT means to him,
Hmm.
and oh, in fact, in his newsletter a couple times ago, there was somebody who healed her eyesight totally with EFT, and
Wow.
it's a nice story.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like our eyesight group, you know, that you and I are in, and that's how you and I met, probably what, like 4 or 5 years ago.
I think 3 years now, 2015.
Okay, I'm doing my math wrong because we had one and then a year later and now 2 years later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So okay. But yeah, there's so many really great people in our group, and you know, I'm really excited about what we can do to elevate you know, the results people are getting, and like you said, the awareness that people have that you even can do things in a different way
Yeah.
with your eyesight. And you know, each person has their own little batch, as you do, you know, with the emotional aspect, or the, you know, Bates used the word thoughts. Emily Learman, who became his wife later, was a
Mhm.
little more bold about the feelings stuff.
Yeah, yeah. The
Like, I
more
remember she'd be in a room with a mother and a child,
yeah.
and she'd and the and Emily would try and say, okay, now what do you see? And the mother would go, okay, honey, you can do this. Come on now, concentrate, focus, you know.
Yeah.
And so you could feel Emily kind of throwing up her hands going, no wonder, you know. So, so I think Bates and Emily were into that, especially Emily.
Hmm.
And, you know, I almost have a feeling there were things that maybe he understood that you couldn't even write down at that time.
That's kind of my line of thinking. You know, I'm sure he had more up his sleeve, but he kind of held back a little bit, you know, because he was already
Yeah.
ostracized enough as it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you want to speak a little bit on that point, because not everybody really has a strong sense of that connection between the vision and the feelings or the emotions, of how they can actually influence each other, of what we're
Yeah.
thinking and feeling can influence how we're seeing, but also
Mhm.
what we're seeing can influence our thoughts and our emotions as well, kind of like that two-way process, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, how about if we, you know, I'll just say I'm closing my eyes, and you're running the controls and everything, but maybe you want to, anybody who's listening might want to close their eyes and just, you know, kind of let yourself get quiet and let yourself get still. And the reason I'd like to do this as a visualization is, rather than logically explain why emotions affect eyesight, is see if we can feel how that happens.
Yeah.
So usually doing a visualization, you know, it's nice to slow somebody down. And I'm sure you do this a lot, Nathan, of getting people tuned into their breath. And I often say to people, you know, you don't have to do anything heroic with your breath. Just let it become more natural. Let the shoulders drop. And I might even make a breathing sound for them, you know, like inhale and then exhale. You know, and just make some various suggestions, maybe have them go around their body and find things that are relaxed or strained, and see if they can balance things out. Okay. But now just notice, as you're sitting there, probably in a chair, with your eyes closed, just notice your posture. And now pretend that you're super nearsighted, and there's something in you that knows, and maybe you are super nearsighted. There's something in you that knows that it's a more kind of crunched up in the shoulders, the chest is collapsed. Okay. And then just appreciate that the remedy to that, you know, Dr. Bates would say this person is staring, they'd say this person is not moving. So the remedy of that through Bates techniques is to let the whole chest cavity kind of expand and come up and breathe. And now think, why would a child, we'll start with a child, and for anybody who's become quite nearsighted, the average age is 7 of when they first got glasses. So what happened to that 7-year-old child? Why did they feel like they had to recoil and hold in the world and not feel safe looking out? Why was that? Well, it could be that they were criticized really a lot, by parents who love them and wanted to do the best, but that's what they knew. So they criticized the child, and the child was always like kind of guarding himself or herself. Another thing that's very common with children, and at first it doesn't make sense, but when you reflect on it, it does make sense, is if you have a 7 or an 8 or 9-year-old child and you move that child to a new town or a new school, you might be taking everything that child knows, their whole world, and basically hiding it from them. Like they're never going to see it again.
Yeah.
And they felt safe there. They had friends there. So, not to say people don't have changes like that, but if you do, give your child a lot of extra love and help them to feel safe in this new world and get them to talk about how they feel and maybe learn EFT. It works really great with kids. So now you go on through junior high is terrible time, for just about everybody. And people that have a lower prescription of glasses probably got them in junior high, maybe high school. And then, what about, you get out of school and then some people go to college, some people get a job, some people get a stressful job. And you can just feel, a lot of people will get glasses soon after they get a certain job. And you can just feel energetically, again, with your eyes closed, you can feel how your body's recoiling against this job that you have, or this, you know, this horrendous, a lot of work you've got to do for college, or, maybe you got married young and things aren't working out so well. And you can feel how your eye muscles are somehow tied into all this. And that's the Bates model, of course, is that these muscles are tight. Well, the muscles are tied in directly or indirectly to the shoulders, to the chest, to the belly. And so what we're trying to do with, of course, with the Bates method, with Nathan with the yoga, and each person with their bag of tricks, each Bates teacher or Bates coach with their bag of tricks is trying to help a person really change from the inside. Sometimes it involves a complete personality change, and maybe that kind of makes sense. So how's that for kind of a starter? I like to mention Louise Hay too,
Mhm.
because I find probably at least half of the people that I usually bump into are familiar with Louise Hay. And I got her little book, Heal Your Body,
Yeah.
back in the 80s when it first came out. It was this little blue book. And, I've gotten many replacement copies since. I still have my one where all the pages are falling out.
Nice.
But, later, of course, she went on to start a whole publishing empire with, people like Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra and all that.
Yeah.
But she has this wonderful book that I recommend everybody to get, uh, that has an alphabetic list of conditions or diseases. And then the next column is, well, what would be the emotional or spiritual thought pattern that might lead to that? And then the third column is, what would be a good affirmation, which is a useful starting point if a person, say, uses EFT. What would be a good affirmation to remedy it? And she has several things about eyesight,
Yeah.
like the one you mentioned before, afraid to see what's out there. So she has nearsighted, farsighted, astigmatism, cataract, glaucoma. And then you can just use your intuition to think about others, like macular degeneration. Well, the macula is the tiny central part of the life of what's going on. And, people that have macular degeneration, they tend to be older. They tend to, right at the center of their life, things are collapsing all around them. They don't know what's next, maybe their spouse died. And anyway, so that's, my fascination. People always, like, we have monthly visits of all the vision coaches that have been trained through my program. And it's just kind of a nice forum every month. And so somebody will bring something up, and then everybody will say, "Oh, well, I think they should take some vitamins. I think they should get a massage," And then I'll always just kind of laugh, and I'll say, because somebody will say, "Well, what do you think, Greg?" And I'll just laugh and say, "You know what I think? I'm interested in the emotional backdrop of all this."
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, there are many doorways, and in a way, they all work.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I love the holistic approach to eye care, because I think it highlights all the different doors, all the different approaches, and it might be great for you to try them all or to use them all, but like you shared earlier, some people just pick one and they really focus on that and it works for them. But yeah, there's options, and I think it's easier for a lot of people to kind of naturally go more towards the physical side of things, like, oh, how should I change my diet, or what supplements should I take, or what physical eye exercise should I do, without even really taking into account like the emotional backdrop, like you were saying, of what's kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes that you could also influence a little bit yourself. But I really like that visualization, because it's nice to, I did feel something when you were walking me through, I was just pretending, like imagining, stress from school or from a job, and not consciously or me doing anything, I did feel some of the muscles in my body kind of constrict a little bit, kind of tighten up a little bit, imagining like I'm late for a deadline or something like that. Like, it's whenever we encounter an external stress or fear or an emotion like that, a lot of people don't really tune into their eyes and realize that their eyes are one of the first things to really clamp down and to really tighten and stop moving, as a reaction, because that's how we're responding to it, is visually.
See the world, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe
then,
some people might more likely have digestive problems or something. Who knows karmically why this person has
right.
this? But yeah, the eyes are so sensitive.
Yeah. And I've told this to a lot of people, and um, if this type of thing was a little bit more incorporated into the conventional approach, then maybe some people would not be in glasses today.
Mm-hmm.
If we took our children to the eye doctor because they're having trouble seeing in class, if instead of just immediately getting slapped with prescription glasses on their face, if the eye doctor would ask, well, what is the emotional backdrop? What's going on in your life or at school or with your friends or with your family? Like, what do you need to talk about? But, they just don't have time for that, to get into all that. It's just easier for them to use the glasses and go on to the next patient. But
Yeah. When I was a kid, we had a family doctor. I mean, it was like Marcus Welby, MD. It was like off of TV. This guy actually came to our house with his black bag,
yeah,
and he would sit and he would look at us and he would listen. And it wasn't about penicillin. It was about, how are you doing? And my sister remembers to this day, he laughed like a saw. He laughed, like that. And, I remember his name was Dr. Zog. And that's what you're saying. If partly, I think,
yeah,
is if eye doctors could go more back to, well, why, how do you think this happened? Why do you think
yeah.
it's blurry?
I wonder how much of that is just maybe how much, maybe they don't see as much of a connection between those types of things and the vision. Maybe that their approach is a little bit more physical in nature. Oh, the eye is a different shape, or something's wrong with the eyeball or the eye organ. But what we're just talking about goes deeper than the eye organs, and it's really working on the mind. And So whenever I started learning more about the emotional side of it, whenever I went and reread some of Bates's stuff, whenever he would mention like mental strain, sometimes I would kind of like implant some of those more like emotionals or thoughts or feelings, like you were saying earlier, um, and see if there is something that he does kind of like cryptically, mention
Yeah,
about that.
read between the lines, and he's
Yeah.
putting little messages there for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, some of the examples he gave was like even something as just like being startled by a loud noise
Hmm.
can create a refractive error or make your vision
Hmm.
blurry just by hearing a loud sound. So it's not just the eyes that are sensitive; it's all the senses that we're just constantly being, bombarded with sounds and smells and sights that if they're disagreeable, then our reaction to them can, spur us down this path to develop some sort of vision imbalance. Um, but the hopeful thing is that maybe it's not permanent. Maybe there are things like EFT and bait stuff that can help get us out of that and kind of rewire things and send us down a different pathway. This has been really great to dive into some of these topics together. And if people want to learn more about EFT or about you, where should people go to learn a little bit more?
To learn about me, my website is bettereyesightnow.com. And also you can, to look for either Nathan or myself, you can go to YouTube and just put in our names and a word like eyesight or something, and it'll pop up. And as far as EFT, I think, YouTube has become really about the best for so many things. You might want to look up Carol Look. She has a lot of stuff. Uh, uh, there's a couple of people that are real prolific with EFT videos. Some of them go with the choices technique, where it's like, even though uh, I don't see clearly, I choose to see clearly. And I I don't use that, or I don't use it very often, but it's, a person might even want to consider going down that road.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's a little more like I'm trying to decide in advance what the EFT is going to do for me. And I feel like I'm kind of crowding out the beauty of it.
I see. Yeah.
But really it's a big wide world, and everybody resonates with different things, but YouTube is probably the best place to go and surf around and see who you resonate with. If you want to go back to the classic, to the founder, Gary Craig's website, which was down for a while and now it's back,
Mm.
is emo, like emotions, EMO. Oh, EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. So emofree.com is Gary Craig's website, and it has a lot of free stuff you can look at.
I think that's
And
some of the stuff that I was researching originally several years ago. There's like a whole training on there and classes and PDF.
several years ago, he was definitely it was all happening around him, and now it's gone all these different directions.
Oh, okay.
And to look up Nick Ortner, uh, because he's done all these tapping world summits, so called, and they're really nice. It gives a lot of different uh, examples and different teachers and different ways. And he
Yeah.
has a sister named Jessica Ortner, and she has some super sweet, very loving, very uh, easy to follow EFT tutorials. So if you looked for Jessica Ortner, uh, you might find some nice stuff there too.
Cool. Yeah. I think definitely people should check it out, see what's out there. And my advice would be to try it out, not just watch it or read about it or learn about it, but, experience it, play around with it and see what kind of, experience you have with it for yourself, and something might come from it for you. Yeah, this has been really, really nice. And maybe we'll be able to do another episode at some point in the future and Maybe we could even give people a little bit of a heads up so that people could like submit questions if we
Oh,
like pick
yeah.
a topic or something like that. Um, but yeah, definitely check out Greg's website, Better Eyesight Now. I like the addition of now in there because a lot of people, when they first think of or learn about some of this stuff, they think it's going to take forever to get the improvements. But that's a nice little suggestion there that it's actually possible right now in a very short period of time. And some of
Well, I
those,
like what Claire Hackett said. She said, aim for a success every single time. You know, like aim for being able to see a little more clear and feel like, wow, if it didn't get more clear, maybe I'm missing something.
yeah, I think that could prevent people from just like going through the motions,
Yeah.
doing the
Well,
practices.
I've been palming for 3 weeks and nothing's happened. Ah, that would be discouraging.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, thanks. Me too, Nathan. It's been a delight hanging
Absolutely.
out,
Thanks so much
comparing
for being
notes.
here with us. And hopefully, people have learned a little bit more about the emotional side of it, a new practice, maybe even to incorporate into their vision practice. Try a little EFT or a little tapping or a little both, and see if that maybe helps get you to the next stage of your vision journey. But thank you so much for being here, Greg.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Really, really great, Nathan.